You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button.
The dust is settling, right, on the early national signing day, but the roster movement for LSU certainly has not settled. We'll start with the news today, and we'll start with Mason Taylor. Obviously, everybody knew that Mason Taylor was going to have a decision to make. And he has officially declared for the 2025 NFL Draft. So when you look back on Mason Taylor's career at LSU, you look back at a guy who leaves LSU after 3 years with 129 receptions. That's an LSU record. 1,308 yards receiving. That's an LSU record. And a guy that has left you with multiple memorable moments, none bigger than his performance in the 2022 Alabama game. He is on the short list for best tight end in LSU history, and a lot of people would put him at the top of that list as the best tight end in LSU history. When you look at it from a standpoint of Brian Kelly, and this is one of the one things we heard about him coming in is developing tight ends. Like, he's great at it, and the history at Notre Dame showed you. I think you feel really good going forward with Brian Kelly helping mentor tight ends and then fitting into the offense that LSU has, given what you saw with the first one he had experience with here at LSU in Mason Taylor. So, hats off to Taylor on a great career, and he will go forth into the NFL Draft. I do want to play you this, though, because it stuck out to me. So, every Saturday during the season on Eagle 98.1 Game Day, I sit down with Jim Nagy from the Senior Bowl to scout the competition. Well, heading into the Nichols game, we took that as an opportunity to really look at the LSU players that they were keeping an eye on for Senior Bowl. So it was coming off the first game against USC, and Mason Taylor was heavily on their radar. And I asked Jim Nagy about Mason Taylor, and this is what he said.
Going back to the spring with Mason being at the pro day for Jaden's pro day, and they ran that pass game script with Neighbors and Brian Thomas and all those guys. To me, the guy that stood out was Mason Taylor. You know, because in last year's offense, he was really just kind of a check down player for them. I didn't break down the percentage of catches, but man, it seemed like everything he caught was in the flat. Like, you never saw this guy run seams or get downfield. So it was good to see him do that a little more on Sunday against USC. Obviously a really natural athlete. He's smooth, he's fluid, he catches the ball really well. So he's going to end up being one of the top tight ends in this draft class.
The beginning of that is what stuck out the most to me here, that we're now, almost 3 months removed from that conversation. He said, you go back to the spring, and at Jaden's pro day, Mason Taylor was the guy that stood out over Thomas and Neighbors, who obviously were both first-round picks and are having great careers so far. But Mason Taylor, because you got to see the skill set on display, and you got to see more of it on display this year as he was third on LSU's teams in receptions and yards. So, great career. Best of luck to Mason Taylor. Now, that does leave a hole when you talk about pass catchers for LSU, or I should say, not leave a hole. It just further shines a spotlight on that hole. What also did was earlier today, Shelton Sampson entered his name into the transfer portal for LSU. Not all that surprising, but it's a bummer. It's a former 5-star guy from Baton Rouge, Catholic High, like local guy. You never want to lose that. But what you're really losing there is still the potential. And you've been through 2 years, and the potential just hasn't been reached at LSU for Shelton Sampson. He has appeared in 11 games for LSU over 2 years, but has not recorded a receiving stat yet. It's been difficult for him to get on the field, and when he's had his opportunities, it's been difficult for him to do much with it. That's just the honest truth. Again, does it sting losing a former 5-star from Baton Rouge? Absolutely, it does. But it's also a guy that there's still so much unknown. You didn't know if you could count on him going in to 2025, but it's another body that you lose. And it's disappointing for Shelton Sampson as well. Remember, he was the guy that everyone talked about early in camp. He then had the injury, and you never really heard from him again throughout camp. You were looking for the guy to stretch the field this year with Hilton. He got his opportunity. It didn't come to fruition. So Shelton Sampson, off to the transfer portal. You did get one bit of good news. And that was Wednesday night when Aaron Anderson took to Instagram and announced that he would be returning for another year of eligibility. And this is huge for LSU. Absolutely massive for a lot of reasons. Let's go through some of them, and then we'll look again at what it means big picture for the receiving room and what you still need if you're the Tigers. For one, it's a veteran presence back in your receiving room, which you needed. Okay? Kyron Lacey, out of eligibility, gone. CJ Daniels, portal, gone. Aaron Anderson Mason Taylor, draft, gone. Like, he provides a veteran pass catcher for LSU returning. He was also, I would argue, your most consistent receiver all season for LSU in 2024. He was second on the team in receptions, yards, and touchdowns. But when I look at him and say he was the most consistent, here's why I go that route. Anytime LSU needed a big play, they went to Aaron Anderson, and he delivered when it came to the receivers. Everyone's going to immediately think about Ole Miss, and you should, by the way. That's the biggest play in LSU's season in 2024, was the late touchdown from Nuss to Anderson in that Ole Miss game. That's what you're all going to think, and you should. But it started game number 1 against USC. In game number 1 against USC, Aaron Anderson gave LSU the lead late in the third quarter in that game. South Carolina, when you were making your comeback, Aaron Anderson was a huge part of that. He caught a long one down the sideline that set up your touchdown right before the half that brought you back within 1 score of South Carolina. And then in the second half, when LSU went to take the lead, the first lead they had in the whole game, Aaron Anderson converted the only third down on that drive, a 3rd and 7 on the first set of downs. He converts that and really jumpstarts the rest of your drive. Caden Durham would polish it off and LSU would take the lead. You could look as recently as the Oklahoma game with the kickoff return, or him scoring the only touchdown against Florida. When they needed the big play, when they needed something good to happen and they had to go to a receiver, they went to Aaron Anderson and he delivered every single time. So getting that guy back is absolutely massive if you're LSU. Also, just from the player standpoint, you love to see it for Aaron Anderson. What a journey he's had. We all know that. 5-star from Carr, number 1 player in the state of Louisiana, goes to Bama, plays in 1 game, redshirts, transfers back home, struggles to kind of find that role in his first season back in Baton Rouge, and then explodes this year. And now has a chance to build on that and improve his own draft stock. So the decision for Aaron Anderson makes a whole bunch of sense. From an LSU standpoint, though, I don't think you can really put a price on it. While pass catchers are leaving out the door, he's coming back, and that's massive. Now, what do you do the rest of the way? Well, you need more. I mean, clearly. Obviously, you brought in Teron Francis, Phillip Wright in this very recent signing class. You get Kyle Parker back from injury, but the experience just wanes. Xavion Thomas is the only other guy on this team from a receiver standpoint that can return. He only had 20 receptions this year. You still lack a number 1. Like, as great as Aaron Anderson was this year, and he's great in that role as the 2. I don't think Aaron Anderson's going to be your number 1 wide receiver. He wasn't this year. You didn't have a number 1 this year. You still don't have a true number 1 for next season. You have to go get one. That's going to have to be in the transfer portal. And we know LSU's going to be after playmaking wide receivers, and they're trying to be aggressive here in this first portal window. And you've got some really good ones out there already in the transfer portal. Everyone's going to look at the former 5-star from Texas Tech, but you also have KC Conception from NC State. Like, there's a lot of great receivers out there in the portal to go get. LSU has to go make their mark and get one of them because you need a true number 1. You have a lot of guys with potential, but it's not realized potential, and there's a huge lack of experience there. We'll see what Chris Hilton opts to do. Obviously, he could come back if he so chooses. He could seek greener pastures. He could seek a different opportunity. He could seek whatever he wants. In the end, Chris Hilton caught 5 balls this year. And it's been hard to keep him on the field. So I would still actually count him in the unrealized potential role. Elite talent, former 5-star, all of those things. But you need more and we're going to kind of run through this again when we go through portal needs for LSU, because wide receivers right at the top of the list. But getting Aaron Anderson back is a major step in the right direction for LSU, but you have to figure out the pieces around him, and I think you still have to obviously get a true number one. But you're getting arguably your most reliable target from 2024 back. It's hard to overstate the importance of that. So Aaron Anderson will return to LSU. Mason Taylor to the NFL draft. Shelton Sampson into the transfer portal. And unless I'm missing something in the last few minutes, you're all caught up on the wide receiver room at LSU right now.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.